Recording started.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Wonderful. Thanks so much to Lucy and to Steve and to everybody at this conference for having me here. I'm really excited to be on right now. And, oh, sure. Lucy, do you want to, should I put it back to you?
You want to try your mic for a second? Let me just do our sponsors and we'll get going here. That way you won't have to deal with me interrupting you. Okay, so here's everybody. These are our special thanks to our sponsors: Iron, BrainPop, Flat Classroom, Little Lives, Big Dreams, Blackboard, Collaborate, and TechSmith. We couldn't have done this without you. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And then I think you guys already did this, but I want to make sure you have a chance. I'm going to give you what you all have whiteboard privileges. There's a star icon. There's a tool on the left-hand side of your whiteboard. If you click on that, you might have to click twice and indicate where in the world you are today. So this will give Pam a little bit of an idea of our audience and remind us of how we're going global really this week. So it looks like, so you can also type in the chat to let us know specifically where you are, because it's kind of hard to tell sometimes. I'm in Chicago, Illinois. Pam is in New York. We have Guam. Yes, Guam. Thomas has been here from Guam quite a bit. All right. Morocco. Fabulous. Okay, so I'm going to, so now we have an idea where everybody is. I think we've got, Thailand. All right. This is probably one of the more global audiences we've had for the keynotes, because depending on the time of day, people are participating or not participating. So without further ado, Pam, thank you so much for doing this, especially after you've come back from Africa. We really appreciate being here, and we can't wait to hear your story. Thank you.
So Pam, I had to turn your microphone off because there was an echo, so there you go.
Okay, hi everybody. Hey, Lucy and Steve, do you want me on the video also?
I think if you're comfortable with it, you can. And then if we notice a slowdown in the bandwidth for anybody, we'll turn it off.
Okay, whatever works for you all works for me just fine. Should I let me put on my first slide here. So, well, welcome everybody, and I'm very happy to be here with you all on this final day, and also to know that so many people from around the world have joined us this morning. Just as Lucy was saying about the time difference, I've just flown in late last night from Rwanda, so I'm also on a different time difference. So to me, seeing the sun after a long time flying into the dark feels kind of nice too. So I'm happy to be with you all, and especially to talk about such important and compelling ideas. And I'm very glad afterwards to be in touch with everybody to follow up on any thoughts or furthering the discussion in any possible way. And I really have a lot of gratitude to Steve personally, because he, I think, had a lot of the real vision about the way we can use technology in the classroom long before anyone else had. And I think you're a real visionary for that. So I'm like I said, just back from Rwanda. My work happens right here in the United States, where I am right now, as well as in across the world on behalf of my organization called LitWorld. And my mission for LitWorld is really to end global illiteracy. And I'm just going to work as hard as I can on that until as long as I can. In fact, my father, who's 76 years old, came with us on this last trip because I think he feels the same way. So I hope I can be just like him further along into the life journey that I'm on. Never, ever, ever in the history of the world has literacy been so important and so vital. And so what I hope to do within the next time frame that we have is to really together think about what the role of literacy is in this new era, and how the synergy of technology and innovation and one's own intuition really play a huge role in what the power of literacy can mean for all children everywhere. So what I want to take you on a little bit of a journey through the work that I'm doing right now with LitWorld and how we're expanding it, and also how everyone can be part of it. And really just to share with you a few of the big ideas that we've been thinking about and the work that we've been developing. So I do like this sensation of education without borders, of the sense that when people are literate, they can reach across time and space, geography. There's a great book by the author David Getz about a little girl who wants so badly to go to the moon. So she flies, in the book, she flies up to, I think, into outer space and looks down onto the Earth, and one of her biggest surprises is that there are no lines like there are on the maps that we've drawn. That she wonders, how is it that the world looks like there are no boundaries at all? And I think that really is what technology is doing for us, is it's really bringing down the boundaries. When I was just traveling right now in Kenya and in Rwanda, there was not a place I went where people didn't have access to Facebook on their cell phones or access to cell phones, even in the most rural communities. And so my vision is this idea that mobile technology is going to help us to all be more connected to each other, more attached to each other. And in that way, not to overstate it, but I do believe that the key to peace is really in us knowing each other and understanding each other and being friends and being connected to each other. So that's really what drives me. The mission for LitWorld is this idea of story and the human story. And I met a little girl by the name of Diana in Kibera, which is one of the world's largest slums. It's in Nairobi, and there are at least 250,000 AIDS orphans in that slum alone, which is the size of approximately the size of Central Park, the very large park in New York City. And so everywhere you go, you see children who are living in the streets without homes, without any kind of safety net or structure. Diana has joined one of our LitWorld Girls Clubs, and she's been able to communicate with girls all over the world via Skype, via mobile technology, via the blogging that they're doing with each other. And one of the things that she told me on this most recent trip was that the Girls Club model, the model of the combination of literacy and humanity and technology is really, she said, what has given her the idea that there's a world outside her world. And those were her words that she used with me, which I just loved. She's 13 now, and she's entering adulthood. And she took me aside when I was there just last week and said to me, you know, I was just noticing that even though things have never been that easy for me, she said, it feels really hard for me now as I'm getting older. And I said to her, well, you know, it's hard to be 13 for any girl, no matter where any girl lives, no matter where in the world. It's just, that's an age where you're looking back onto your childhood and remembering it, but also looking forward into your adulthood. It's a very important moment in your life. And she said, you know, I realized that because I'm writing to girls around the world, and I can see that it's not just me. And I think that's for me, that's the most important thing, is the world beyond the world, but also that your own story really does matter, that everybody listening today, your stories matter as educators, as teachers, as students of the world, that we all have a story to share. And the thing that I've noticed about the work that I do is that, you know, there's a sort of a deficit model when it comes to education. And the deficit model is we don't have this and we don't have that and our resources are low. But in fact, you can actually, anybody can learn to read and write because everybody has one thing. Everybody has their own stories. And that, for me, is the most important, sort of the essence of the work that I do, is if you have stories to tell, you can learn to read and write. And technology, far from being a cold, sort of distant tool, for me is warming up the world. I see that Facebook and Twitter and the blogs that we do are really in a certain way, they're warming up the world. because they're bringing Diana into focus for me, they're bringing me into focus for Diana, they're bringing Sarah into focus for Diana, and Diana into focus for Sarah. And when they grow up, and hopefully I hope they will grow up in such a way that they can be the change makers, they can be the decision makers, they can be the people who are the change they want to see in the world. And in that way, they're already warmed up to each other. They're not strangers. The way I think war starts, and the way I've seen it traveling a lot in post-conflict environments, is that people don't know each other, and so they really don't trust each other. What happened in Kenya in the post-election violence was seeds that were sown for many years before by people separating each other, by children from different tribes not going to the same schools, by people not knowing each other. And that really causes, and that's true. And we need it warmer everywhere, so says one of our participants, which is true. And yes, the truth of it is that users are warm because users are human. And I think that this idea of the warming, maybe we can use the term global warming in a different way, and use it as part of the role that technology plays in bringing people together. And so my mission in terms of the work that I do and the work that I think you all are really doing is that we're using the power of stories to cultivate strength in people. And so I thought today I'll just tell you a little bit about the work that I'm doing, and a little bit about what LitWorld is doing, and also just ways that we can all, thank you so much, I love this photo. I actually just took this photo, and yeah, you're right about that, about this idea of looking in can feel left out. One of the reasons actually I've been really interested in how we can help people of all different ages get invested in the technology tools is because I think as soon as people touch them, they feel warmed up by them. And I think that's a really important point, is that when people don't know how to do something, they do feel left out. And that all goes back to that idea of like, how are we all going to come together? How are we all going to be part of this? This was actually a picture I took in Rwanda just a few days ago. The women were coming to meet in under a tree, and they were having a community meeting. And one of the things about Rwanda is, as I'm sure you all know, and that's true, this idea, one of our commenters has just said, pictures and film allow us to look at ourselves collectively. That's beautiful. That's beautiful too, really it is. Even this picture, when you look at this image right here, this idea of the collective view, is that what happened in Rwanda was that there was so many years of war, and the people there are still very traumatized because the country is so small. It's not even much bigger than the state of Pennsylvania. And over 1 million people were killed during this war. And when you think about it, every person looks at each other with some form of distrust because this person may have been someone that was involved in something that did damage to your family or to your home or to your own sense of self. And so what the country has done, what the government has done, yes, we are working with indigenous languages, yes. In terms of trust, I will share with you a model that we've developed called the 7 Strengths that I think is, for me, what I love about it is it's a strength-based approach to how we teach literacy, as opposed to thinking about people's personal stories. And if you think about Rwanda or Liberia or other countries where there's been a lot of conflict and a lot of tension between people, the idea that stories aren't always about negative stories. It's about the positive. It's about what you do to build your own strength, what you do to build your own strength. And that's, yes, somebody now is saying this about visiting Senegal and photographs being a real important form of currency. I think that same thing is true about stories, too, that stories are a form of currency. Beautiful, beautiful. And in this moment, when you think about it, this moment in history, I think, is a lot like these women coming together in Rwanda. Many of these women were polarized during the war because their children were killed. Many of the people that I met there said, you know, how can you forgive? How can you forgive when such terrible things have happened? But what the government has done here is the government has created opportunities for people to come together under trees, wherever feels safe and comfortable for people, and then through the coming together, have meetings to determine their own future, to decide matters of governance, to decide matters of education, and this is the kind of spirit that I think technology is creating for us, which is we are all coming together under the acacia tree, which is what these women are doing. They're coming together. And that is, like you say, Rhonda, it is what's going to lead us into the future, is the coming together. Being alone never works, you know. If you think about it, like the Impressionist painters, or you think about the founders of this country, the Constitution of the United States, nothing great is ever done in isolation. In fact, I'm reading Steve Jobs' biography right now, and when you think about like, all the people he really did collaborate with, and this idea of collaboration as being the key to peace or the key to innovation, that's why technology is so incredibly precious, because it's giving us the way to do that. So just about happiness. I want to say that I don't want us to underrate happiness. When people say, why are you wasting time on the internet? You know how that always happens? People say, yes, that's so true about connected education, and this idea that why are you wasting time? And when I think about what I do when I go and I look for blogs that I like, I remember a long time ago when I talked to Steve for the first time, he said to me, the first thing about the use of the internet is finding things that you love. And I think that that's really true. And one of the reasons I love this photo so much is that this was one of the many opportunities that I've had in Kibera in Kenya to work with these children, in which we were sharing both books and technology. And the joy, it's so true. The sparkle in her eyes, as Tammy or Chris says, and the smiles, as Tammy says, is very underestimated. Happiness, I think, is almost the most underestimated aspect of education. When I go into classrooms, I'm a literacy leader, I visit a lot of classrooms, I see a lot of people working in classrooms. When I do not see joy in the classroom, I say, I don't care what your test scores are, I don't care what you're doing right at this moment. If I don't see joy in here, then that is not going to be lasting, sustainable education. Not going to be lasting and sustainable. And, you know, you can get that test score one day, but one thing I'll say, and I'm going to be very blunt, is that in New York, for example, you know, the fourth grade test scores went up a couple of years ago, and, you know, Mayor Bloomberg made a big thing about it, but in 2 years' time from then, the middle school dropout rates were the highest they had ever been. And that's great. And I love to hear people, Marcy saying that learning globally, yes, following bliss, and also just what Chris, you know, this idea about bliss. I mean, the achievement of joy or happiness is not ever to be undervalued, because it's also really good for people's physical health, for their emotional health, and that's why I love the idea of the internet technology as being a way for us to experience that kind of joy. Just to share with you a little bit about the 3 pillars, because I do think for Lit World it's been really important for us to honor these 3 pillars, and I actually think they'd be good pillars for the world of global interconnectedness, not just for us at Lit World, but because I want my ideas to spread. I want everyone to utilize these ideas in any way that you want. And yes, this idea that students have, flow. Yes, I love that word flow so much. And also, yes, that students have the information. And that's, I think, was something that the great thinker Paulo Freire said was, you know, that starting with people's own stories is the greatest capacity we have. And I think also that listening is a key for us. And someone here is saying this idea that, as Tammy is saying, about finding connections, being in schools, not feeling connected, that, you know, it's true that now we have more opportunity than ever, not just for teachers, but for students too. Diana's in a group of girls that she happens to connect with and love, but also she's meeting with Sarah, who's in New York, and she's all the way in Kenya. She may connect with Sarah really differently than she connects with one of the girls in her group. These are the 3 pillars of Lit World, and I agree. This idea of being together, you know, the great writer E.M. Forster said, only connect. And I do believe that is what those women under the tree were doing. And that's really what I want us to be able to do too. So the 3 pillars of Lit World: access, advocacy, and education. I think for me, this is actually probably a great description of what internet technology, what the social media does for us too. When I think about why I'm on Twitter, why I'm on Facebook, why I'm blogging on my homepage at LitWorld, it's exactly that. I want people to have access, but I also want access. Like, I want access to you. Like Noble says right now that we are role models for each other, for our students. To me, I walk away from that conversation changed, right? Just as Rhonda says the same. In this way, LitWorld's 3 pillars, I want those to be for all of you. And thank you to Marcy for that. I feel the same way also with all of you. Let's just to think about access, and I'm sorry this photo doesn't happen to work. It's actually, we can post this PowerPoint and you can use it however you want. This isn't a video, it's just a photo, but we can go on. Here, what I love about this, thank you, Elise, I feel the same too. I love this photo because what I love about it is there's a thing that happens in literacy education where everyone says to me, I get a ton of people interviewing me saying, what's going to happen to books because of technology? And I say, I don't understand why it has to be one or the other. What I love about this image here is these students in Kenya are actually reading aloud to students in New York. You can see the mobile phone right in front of them, and they're really, really, really working together, collaborating with the technology, texting each other on the mobile device, and also using literature, children's books, which many of them had never, ever seen a children's book before. So granted, we've got some amazing technology out there, but the synergy between holding on to a book, which a lot of the children I work with have never done before, and it feels visceral and powerful for them, and the mobile technology all at the same time is the ultimate connection. We were visiting with Partners in Health in Rwanda. We brought dozens of books to children in the medical ward who otherwise would have a very hard time. Exactly, it cheers us up to visit children's sections of bookstores. Exactly, exactly, exactly. And that's what it does for children. The beauty of the pictures, and it isn't even just for children. I was doing a teacher training in Liberia, and I was finishing the book, and I stopped to say something about doing a lesson, and one of the teachers said, don't stop, don't stop. We've never had anybody read aloud to us. And Tammy says picture books are powerful for secondary school kids too, and I totally agree. Not even just for secondary students, but for adults. It's funny, this idea of English as a second language gets so complicated when in fact I think we're really almost ignoring the uses for picture books in the role of children and this idea of learning English together or learning any language, because turning that around, I was learning Kenya Rwanda. It's a beautiful language, and I'm hungry for books written in that language so that I can learn them, and the pictures would really help me a lot. Chris asked the question about producing media on phones. We've been doing a little bit of practice with this at LitWorld, and if anybody on here is interested, I'd love to know more about it too. We've been connecting with some of the phone companies and trying some things out with our LitClubs, which is great. Sorry about this, I don't know. Let's look at the second pillar, which is advocacy. Oh, yay. Thanks, Marcy. I'm glad to hear that. And for everyone else, please, I urge you to join us in this work, because the synergies are vast. And again, the beauty of it, as Steve predicted several years ago, are that the technology is going to be what brings us together. Yay. Graphic novels and comics, one thing about access is that I've been really advocating for, and I talk a lot, especially about boys in this country, in the United States where I am sitting right now, is that there's been a lot of emphasis placed in classrooms on the whole class novel, and especially boys have told me that they're not always that interested in the whole class novel that can be selected. And we just have to create opportunities for children to read at their own level, at their own pace, and to read the kinds of books they really want to be reading, whether online or offline. Graphic novels, comic books, blogs, Twitter, all of this is the combination of literacies that become more and more available as more and more goes online. One of the things that we started a couple of years ago, and I know some of you know about this already, but I'm going to mention it here, is we started a day called World Read Aloud Day. Every year, for the past 2 years, it's been on in March, and it's going to be again in March this year on March 9th. And this is an image from Sri Lanka on that day. And our friends in Sri Lanka were helping us to celebrate World Read Aloud Day. And that is exactly right. Question is asked, how to create lifelong readers. We don't let them figure out what they like to read. Exactly. What is that? We're always selecting for them. The thing I find kind of humorous is when teachers say the internet is too scary for kids because it's too much information. What is that? There's never too much information. It's just a journey. I actually like to use the word accompanying people on a journey. Like we are as teachers, as educators, we are accompanying our students. They have to help them, right? We have to help them curate their reading experience, yes. And I don't get it. I don't understand what the education world's fear is in students making their own choices. I actually agree with you, Kelly. I think that that our students are better curators than we are. I think they're selective, they're honest. They're not so concerned about what outsiders think, about someone thinking I'm not reading something that's good enough to be reading. I think you're absolutely right. And I think this is the revolution, actually, is choice. It's curating. It's advocating for students to actually self-select their learning path. And in fact, I could not agree with you all more. The other way I think the internet and sort of thinking about like the role that technology plays in warming up the universe is advocacy as it relates to issues or causes. And thank you to Marcy for this. You know, this idea of ebooks making it easier for us to select what we read, which is why I'm just hungry and urgent in my feeling that we have to get more books online, and we have to get books on e-readers, and we have to get books for children, because if you look at the Kindle, there's ever so many more books for adults than there are for children, because children aren't, you know, a consumer, they're not the consumers that are paying for things, so they don't get to advocate for themselves. And exactly, Rhonda says, you know, ask them what they thought to tell them what to read. I mean, this idea of a top-down just isn't working anymore. It's not working in the business place. It doesn't really work anywhere, and I think that's really important to know. Advocacy, also every year we do a Stand Up for Girls event. We did it this year. Hundreds of thousands of girls participated. The reason why is because there are close to 800 million people in the world who can't read, but the majority of them are girls, and that is mostly because of inequity issues around the world, you know, I know you all know what the issues are. It's been very, very poignant to me to visit around rural areas, especially in Africa, to find out how many girls are having deep trouble getting to school. And yes, in terms of just advocating, I think there are a lot of concrete ways for us to advocate. Advocating for access to ebooks, advocating, like you said, to provide free access to leveled books. And this is especially true for girls in the developing world, where I see the mobile technology being the way of the future, where if they can't safely get to school, at least they would have mobile books online. So education is our third pillar, and of course that's your main pillar. But I want to sort of have you think about how access, advocacy, and innovation all go together. And again, I'm sorry if the photo isn't showing here, but this is just an image from one of, actually, I was just visiting this last week, and I'm happy to post it later if you want to see it. The other, I should just say a word about our LitClubs, is that I was really feeling like that whole idea that you were all talking about earlier, it's not, someone's asking the question now, Chris is asking, young adult literature, is it alive and well? Oh, sorry, everyone's, connectivity is a problem. I'm sorry for that. I hope you can fix that, because I would like to see everyone here. So so back to just someone asked the question about young adult literature as being alive and well. The U.S. is publishing most young adult literature, and actually that's something I'm hoping as we get young people in our LitClubs to write their own stories. We have a lot of teenagers writing stories now that we can actually do some local publishing, because young adult literature is, oh hi Nepal, how fun, is really important. And I think that goes back to that point about self-publishing and one's own stories. And if we start doing that now, what's going to happen is the online world is going to support that, and children can be able to publish their own pieces online. We won't have to wait for the slowness of publishers to advocate for young adult literature around the world, although, believe me, I love the publishers right now because they're the ones who help me pack my bags and take those young adult books around the world. The other piece of education for us is this idea of community-based literacy leadership training that the people, like if you look at this picture, these are children in our LitClubs that we're working with around the world, and our colleagues there, particularly Rose and Sophia, who are just amazing heroes to us. They're working in really hardship conditions with over 100 children in a classroom, and we're providing them access to technology that's enabling them to connect with us and get trained so that they can actually work. They know their communities the best, and we honor that. I want to share with you all, and thank you. Oh, welcome to our friends from Nepal, and it's our pleasure, my pleasure, to have you here with us. And so, yes, I do agree that there's this sort of synergy of both us writing and telling our own stories and also seeing models, the models being those beautiful, beautiful books that are already published or posted online, that there's that back and forth between author and writer, me looking at a book and saying, you know what, I want to write just like that. Govinda and everybody coming from Nepal, I just want to say thank you all for being here as well. So just to say a word about what I see as where literacy comes from, and I do see it as being from that compelling force for wanting to be understood, wanting to be heard. And Chris is asking a Global Young Authors Project. I'm sure there is one, right? Well, actually, that's what I'm sort of trying to do with LitWorld, is create an umbrella around some of the smaller nonprofits around the world, because there's some amazing work going on in rural communities worldwide, in urban communities, and a lot of that is not really that well known. So World Read Aloud Day has done a lot to, I think, bring global young authors together and to have kids write their own stories to read aloud on that day. If you're interested, Chris, in helping us out to expand that, please let me know. So I know we don't have much time left, but what I do want to say is that this idea of strength-based resilience as the core to why I think people want to learn to read and write, that stories don't come from where we feel that we've fallen down, or where we feel weak, or we feel vulnerable, but rather instead, what technology especially gives us the opportunity to do is to celebrate strength, And so we've developed a way to talk about this, whether we're talking about it, yes, exactly, celebrating strength, where we're talking about this in Kigali, or we're talking about it in New York City, New York, or we're talking about it in Cincinnati, or we're talking about it in Nepal, that we have a shared language to talk to each other about what matters to us, what moves us, what makes us fall in love. And so as a result, we've developed some ideas together. So one of our 7 strengths is belonging. And what I've noticed when I work with my LitClubs around the world is that people love to be together, and that kind of goes back to that idea. Somebody can't hear. I'm sorry, Govinda, I don't know how to help you. Maybe I hope Lucy can. Just a minute on belonging, and that is to say that I work with boys here in New York in a foster care program called Children's Village, which is a great, great program, another great website actually. I'll put it right here. That's true. At Children's Village, I work with the boys there, and many of the boys have been traveling through foster care for a very long time. And one really interesting thing is that happened to me several years ago there is one of the boys took me aside and says, Pam, why when we are asked to write down stuff, is it always that we're asked to write about the bad things that happen to us? He said to me, I want to write about the good things so that I can move forward. And it was from that moment that I started to think about this idea about strength-based technology. And so would it help for me to turn off the video? I can do that. Let me turn off the video, and that might help with the bandwidth. So actually thinking about belonging for a minute, when that young man said that to me at Children's Village, I thought, you know what, I had a real revelation, and I said to myself, what if we could create the kind of storytelling and story sharing that is all about strength-based? And that is exactly what's happened on the blogging, in the blogging world. When you look at the blogging world and you think about everybody's writing from their strengths. You know about gardening, so you're writing about gardening. I know about motherhood, so I'm writing about motherhood. Those are where we draw from our strengths, and that's what we need to do. Yes, leveraging those strengths. So belonging is one of the 7 strengths that I use to help our students learn to read and write. 2 is curiosity, and this idea that we are all hungry for knowledge. And another great thing that the internet does for us is to give us and provide us access to that kind of hunger-based knowledge, you know, that you're looking for something, that you're seeking something. And I think that, you know, curiosity, yes, curiosity, inquiry, that we're hungry. You know, it's like when I go and I'm thinking about my reading and writing life, it's not because someone told me to do it. It's because I really want to know something. I mean, it's that simple. It is that simple. And it's really a sort of a missed opportunity when, as educators, we are all about filling up the empty vessels rather than having our students, you know, seek their own answers. Friendship it's so simple. You're so right, and it's so critical and so crucial. Friendship is another strength-based, resilience-building sort of capacity for learning to read and write. And I definitely want to say something about this, because one of the things the girls have said to me in our LitClubs worldwide is they never had time for friendship because they are working so hard after school, traveling, bringing water, cooking for their families. And it is, Lucy's mentioning, it's hard having kids in the system from a parent-educator point of view. From the U.S. system, I would say raising our own 2 daughters here in New York, I would agree with that. I think that a lot of this has to be the connection between the home and the school in terms of what our values are over the long term. Education, I always say to teachers, education is like simmering a pot. You know, you're not going to see after 3 months of test prep you've somehow miraculously fixed a problem. Because you know what, children are not a problem. Each child is a unique and extraordinary, different kind of a human being, which is why our next strength is this is the strength of kindness. I think this idea that writing, reading, learning to connect with one another through this capacity we all have in a child. You know, I was in Kibera the other day, and the children there get 1 meal a day at school. It's a very simple meal. It's a corn meal kind of meal, and yet they were trying to give me their food. And the natural generosity inherent in children is extraordinary. Yes, that's beautiful what Rhonda says about friendship stories are the collective stories we create. That's beautiful, actually. Please write that. Let's post that. That's very, very beautiful. Another one of the strengths that we use to get kids to write is courage. I think we really underestimate how courageous you have to be in childhood and how hard childhood is. And I don't mean just for the children that I was with this past week, but for any child anywhere, whether they're going through, just being a child is really hard. You're more vulnerable. You're smaller than everyone else. Everyone is always looming down from above. And it's a really hard oftentimes hard place to be, but those moments, those exquisite moments of conversation, of exquisite connection where I'm showing my courage by going to sleep. You know, it's like the book Goodnight Moon. It seems simple, but it's really and truly sometimes a scary place for children to be. And oh, thanks, Marcy. Good idea. You know, it's true that, you know, Tammy makes the point about, you know, saying to middle school students, I don't want to go back there. And there's a lot, it takes a lot to get through childhood and young adulthood. And I think our kids don't know. They don't know actually how that feels for other people. And I think that, again, that point about connection or connectivity, human connectivity, is so critical in terms of courage, because it's saying you're not alone. You are not alone. And I'm going to read this Twitter post, or I'm going to read this Facebook status message, or I'm going to read this blog, or I'm going to read this posting, this ebook, and I'm going to say, hey, you know what? That was not so easy for me either. I mean, I think that's why the Harry Potter books are so amazing. Yeah, you're right. Who said that about the nerdiness? Chris. You know, it's funny, I think you're totally right. I was at the Apple store the other day and I said, you know, I think this century should be called the triumph of the nerds, you know? We finally triumphed. Another one of the strengths is confidence, and that is to say that the child who, exactly, nerd fighters unite. That should be what we're all about, you know, in terms of that, because I think that children, they're all experiencing themselves as one way or another, as some form of an outsider. And this connected world allows them to become inside and like Lucy says, warm the world. So new global warming. And that's why confidence means so much. I had one of our girls in our LitClubs actually sang on video this week because she said to us, you know, before the Girls Lit Club, before reading and writing together online, I never would have had the courage to sing. And she said, but I love to sing and I love my voice and I'm more confident now. And I think that's huge. Hope is a big strength. People who feel hopeless don't take care of themselves and don't care for each other in the way that they could, not because they don't want to, but because they feel hopeless, you know. And children so naturally feel hope. This little girl, we're doing a writing workshop in Kibera, and it had been a long, long time. Yes, that's beautiful, Rhonda. Thank you. Hope is the center of the story. One of the children once said to me, she said, what's the secret of this story? And I love that. I think in every story there is a secret, and maybe a better word is even the center, as Rhonda says, that what we hope, the hope is the center of the story. And that is what this little girl, she's been through a lot. She's an orphan. She's been one of the 200,000 AIDS orphans in this community. And just writing her story is a way to say, you know what, there's tomorrow, and tomorrow is really important. And Govinda, Panthi, we spread our arms to you in the rural community. Lucy, should I stop now and should we have discussion? What would be the best way? I have a few more slides, but I'm happy to stop and take questions or have a chat. Or what is the
okay, thanks.
Best, what would be very best for you all?
Because we do have to stop at 10 my time, 11 your time, I guess, for Ed Granger to talk in another room. And so I don't want to go into that session late, although I am like totally entranced by your talk, and I know we could talk forever. So why don't we do some questions? If you want to ask Pam something or comment, raise your hand and we'll pass the mic to you. And then, or you can put your question in the chat and we'll catch it there.
Turned your mic off to stop the echo. You're going to want to turn it back on when you speak. Noble, we've given you the mic if you'd like to ask your question.
Sure. Hi, Pam. My name is Noble. I work with, our organization works with teachers in developing countries, moving them from that teacher-centered to facilitate learning through a student-centered classroom. So many of those engagement strategies, inquiry, collaboration, and so on. I really like your idea of stories. One of the things that I'm trying to work on and pilot and connect with other people in regions of where there's indigenous populations for them to share stories like folklore and things like that so they can see the educational connections, because much folklore is based on, maybe has scientific connotations or otherwhere, but just the fact of sharing stories, because I am hearing with these different countries I go to in Africa, Australia, and in our north here in Canada, many folklore and stories have commonalities, and it'd be very cool to have these populations connect and talk and share these kind of stories. So I'm trying to connect through different people to kind of see how we can get this started, and hopefully we can do that. But I guess my question is the importance of culture, trying to bring culture back into education and rebuild that village that helps support a child. So what do you see about how do we get culture back into education?
Wow, first of all, I love the work that you're doing and the stories. I mean, the sort of depth of the stories, local stories, community stories, culture-based stories. If there's any way that I can help or LitWorld can help, please let me know. Perhaps we can connect after as well. Culture, I think that's the thing actually I think I've been so moved by or has been felt for me in terms of the way people are connecting both across technology, but even just in like the simplest form of face-to-face human interaction when storytelling, is that it is such a transaction. You know, I feel much more enriched when I hear someone else's story, and I think culture is really about that. It's really about, am I listening well enough to really try to understand where is this person coming from? What is their history? What is the oral folk telling, story sharing that they've done, or that I've done for that matter, and to see stories as a form of currency. I think what I guess I hope for as we go forward in thinking about your question is that if we can create the right kind of online platforms, which I'm working on right now, hopeful that LitWorld is going to be able to help organizations like yours to do more of that story sharing, to actually help us do more of the real kinds of comparative literature. You know, we talk about at the high school, secondary level about comparative literature, but what kind of literature are we comparing? I mean, just comparing Fitzgerald to Hemingway is not comparative literature, you know. It's really comparing Rwandese literature to Nepalese literature, to American literature, to Canadian literature, and that literature begins in the oral tellings. I think we have a great opportunity now to actually capture some of those stories by video, by audio. It doesn't all have to be done, you know, with the alphabet. So I hope that helps, but I'm with you all the way if there's anything that I can do. I hope.
Anyone else want to ask a question? This is a great opportunity to get Pam while she's here.
Lucy,
all right. I think everybody is like overwhelmed by this week, and everybody's on board and wants to help in some way, Pam. So expect some follow-up from our friends. This has been amazing. This has been the perfect cap to an amazing week, and I think you speak for all of us with your just eloquent choice of words. So thank you so much, and I can't wait to dig into all of this. And one of my colleagues here from Illinois is asking if you're coming to our ICE conference, which is our state tech conference, and I do the speakers for that as well. And next year we'll definitely have to hit you up because I think you would be a great speaker. So without further ado, I want to just say thank you, Pam. I know this has been, you know, stressful considering that you just came from Africa and everything, but we really appreciate the time. We hope that you'll stay involved with our conference and our network, and we look forward to following your work.
I think you all are just fabulous, and anything that I can do, Lucy, for you and Steve and the amazing work you guys do, I'm ready.
One of the things that has occurred to me, you know, when you have time, you can go through some of the, particularly the keynote sessions, the recordings, there's some organizations that would make excellent partners for on both ends for you. It just seems to me that there's a real need for a coalition of people who are doing work in this area. It has implications for American education, but also for kids around the world. And anyway, one of the ones I really liked was this 10 by 10, Change the World, Change Girls' Education. I can't remember the name of the title, but it's 10 by 10. There were so many organizations like that, and I think that we need to have like a summit of organizations who are doing cool work online maybe. Maybe that's the next thing that we do, something. But there's definitely a need for bringing everybody together more often and in ways that are practical. Thanks, Pam. I'm going to stop the recording right now. If you want to say anything else, you're more than welcome to. And you have Pam's contact information. Follow her on Twitter. I think we're good. It's a wrap. Thanks, Pam.